So the theme is patience this evening, and usually before these sessions, I kind of go through my folders of themes that I've kind of built up over the years of teaching and practicing, and I often find that patience kind of springs out at me, and as it did today. So some of you may have heard me talk about patience before, but I come back to it a lot, and there are probably a couple of reasons for that. One is it's probably something I need to hear again and again and again and again. And I would say that my own kind of default mode is quite impatient. Is to rush, to push, to try to get to the goal. I don't particularly like having to wait when it's something that I want now. And in the past, particularly, sometimes in the present, but in the past particularly, that's caused me quite a few problems. And before I learned to practice, before I knew what mindfulness practice was, there was a lot of frustration in my life because life quite often didn't conform to my plans the way I'd intended it to be. There's an old joke, isn't there? How do you make God laugh? Say what your plans are. You heard that one? It's that sense of like, the universe doesn't conspire to give us what we want quite often. So I would get frustrated when I didn't get the relationship I wanted, or the work I wanted, or the good mood I wanted, or even the kind of like world peace that I wanted, to take it, or even away from kind of just me, but the kind of I didn't get the world that I wanted. This is kind of what in the Buddhist tradition is often called dukkha. I've never come across a word in English that can quite get to that sense of what this means, and it actually means sort of a badly fitting wheel. It's kind of got that sense of the etymology. So I'm told. I'm not a linguistic expert. Sense of a badly fitting wheel. So it's a bit like in life when we experience this. It's like ka-clunk, 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 ka-clunk. And we're on the rickety cart, kind of like ow, 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 ow. And if you change it slightly in the original and change the D to an S, you get sukha, and that has the quality of a well-fitting wheel. So it's kind of like smooth. So life has this quality of badly fitting wheel, and so frustration arises when certainly when I didn't get what I want, and sometimes in the present still that arises. So I guess why I come back to the second reason, and it's related, why I come back to patience, is because of its power. Because actually when I am able, when we are able, as human beings, to drop into this quality, then something kind of rather magical can happen. There's the possibility of pausing and staying with experiences that perhaps aren't what we want, but are what we can handle. And there's the possibility too of being able to listen to what our experience is telling us, the experience of the body, the experience of our circumstances. And then for us to begin perhaps to align or realign. And that's how the sort of the badly fitting wheel but perhaps becomes a more well-fitting wheel. It's not that the world changes, it's still the same road, but the wheel, like us, has begun to change. And then perhaps we can start to actually kind of follow the path, and things get more smooth. And that's a realm of agency that we have, because we can all work to change the world a little bit, and I'm totally up for that. That we can work together to. But there's still these basic qualities of life, that we can't influence. And so if we can change our relationship to them, then that's massive. And patience is such a key way of changing our relationship with experience. So how can mindfulness make the difference? How can patience make the difference? Well, when we're patient, it's possible to watch our experience even when it's not what we want, even when it's painful. When we're patient, it becomes possible to rest with our experience, even when it's not what we want. When we're patient, it's possible to allow our experience to tune into the senses, to stay, and therefore to understand, not up here understanding, but a kind of an experiential, bodily, whole understanding of what's going on. And from that, then, maybe there does come a moment where we act, but the chances of us acting in a skillful way become so much more likely than if we are impatiently just reacting, because impatience has, for me anyway, when I'm impatient, there's a kind of rigidity. There's a kind of like a tension. There's a non-interestedness. Just, I just want to get on to what I want. I'm not interested this moment, because this moment maybe is providing me with what I don't want. So I don't want to connect with it. I want to avoid it. So there's that sense of, if we can, move from disinterest to interest, to move from tension to softness, to move from hardness to flexibility, then that can make a really big difference to how we meet our moments. I'm going to read you a John Kabat-Zinn quote about patience, because he also sort of syncs patience with mindfulness. He says, if you cultivate patience, you almost can't help cultivating mindfulness. Your meditation practice will gradually become richer and more mature. After all, if you really aren't trying to get anywhere else in this moment, patience takes care of itself. It's a remembering that things unfold in their own time. The seasons cannot be hurried. Spring comes, the grass grows by itself. Being in a hurry usually doesn't help, and it can create a great deal of suffering, sometimes in us, sometimes in those who have to be around us. I like that as a phrase, sometimes those who have to be around us. Patience is an ever-present alternative to the mind's endemic restlessness and impatience. So there's that sense of aligning in what's being said there, aligning with nature. It's kind of aligning and recognizing that we're a part of nature. For me, impatience is also kind of a separateness, like from the world, whereas when I'm patient, the word patience actually really, it means to suffer with or to feel with. So when we're patient, it's not just kind of, an individual self-experience, but actually a willingness to open to the world and connect right now. All right, so if that's the why, what about the how? So the how of cultivating patience rests in, it rests in stuff that will be familiar to you, those people who've practiced mindfulness over time. And these are qualities of anchoring, because sometimes we need a kind of something to help us to connect in if the moment isn't providing what we want. So a sense of anchoring perhaps to a place in the body, such as the breath or the feet or the hands. We need intention, we need willingness, a willingness to stay, a willingness to not rush, a willingness to wait. And sometimes that willingness, only comes with time, practice itself. A useful tool is friendliness, kind of the quality of warmth that we can bring to ourselves as an attitude. Embodiment, because as some of you will have heard me say before, the body is always in the present moment. So if we're in the body, it's now. And if it's now, and we're in this now, we're being patient. Because impatience always has a quality of rushing ahead from the moment of getting away. So embodiment is a really, if we're embodied, there's a patience. Awareness, of course, actually noticing what's happening. And this might seem as like a slightly odd one, but the recognition of interdependence, kind of that it's not just about me, it's us. That actually I can be non-identified with my bits, my stuff, my whatever, and then that kind of opens out. And if I'm, because patience often means is a relationship with the world that's kind of in touch, whether it's objects or people or nature. So a sense of patience actually is an opening to this quality of the world in dynamic connection, and recognizing that some of that's in my gift to affect and some of it's not. Some of it I just have to kind of work with. And so I guess that leads into the final kind of quality, which is equanimity, which is kind of the okayness with what arises, the ability to go with the flow. So in our meditation practice, we can cultivate all of these useful tools and qualities that invite patience. So I don't suggest, and I don't think you'll hear other mindfulness teachers suggest, that you try to be patient. Oh, like, I know that's kind of often, you remember that kind of like when you're a kid, like, you must try to be patient. Infuriating, kind of like, well, I'm not patient. Can't, and then trying, be really patient. And there's willpower, it's like, then that's just hard willpower. And willpower we can only maintain for a certain period of time. So I really suggest that actually patience comes as a byproduct of inviting and training these other qualities. So please don't try to be patient. More bringing a light touch to the moment, a play to the moment, and an experimental quality, and see if patience might not unfold by itself. So I'll finish with a quote from Lao Tzu. He said, "Do you have the patience to wait till your mind settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself?" Okay, so let's move into a practice. Taking your seat. This doesn't have to be sitting, but taking your seat kind of more as an approach, kind of the body's present, the body's here. I'm not gonna kind of we shall not be moved. If we're going to be moved, let's be moved inwardly rather than outwardly, which doesn't also mean you have to stay rock solid. But taking our seat in the world, in the moment, steady, mountain-like. And if the eyes want to close, that's fine. What is this moment bringing? Just to check in with you, the process of being you just now. What's going on in here? If you're like a scanning of your experience through the body, what moods are here? What flavors of experience are present? And if you like, now coming to mindfulness of breathing. If it's best for you to choose a different anchor in your body, that's fine. Or indeed outside of the body if you want to, sounds or sights. My guidance will, I'll use the word breath and you can just change it to what you need it to be. Dropping into the breath, this moment. And anchoring attention as best you can to the flow of experience here in this breath, moment by moment. So all of that stuff you noticed just now, that can just go in, it could just be in the background. It doesn't need any fixing or changing. We're just going to come to the breath and tune in to the experience of this. Patiently attending to this breath. And breath is a model of patience. If you try to hurry it up, actually we get breathless. So letting the breath unfold in its own time. And just feeling with the breath, being patient, not needing to change the breath. Being patient with the wandering of the mind too, which is likely to happen over and over. That's part of the process of practice. So when you notice the mind's wandered, just acknowledging where it's gone to and gently unhooking from wherever that is, gently coming back. So not needing to rush or impatiently pull the mind back. Just kind of like letting the mind glide back into the anchor. Inviting a sense of softness. And trusting that just this practice of staying with the breath, staying present in the body, coming back when the mind's noticed wandering with love, that this is the cultivation of patience. Nothing else is needed. Breath by breath, it's being trained. And if you do find any harshness arises, any quality of wanting it to be different or wanting to be better, or all the ways perhaps that the thinking mind comes up with comparisons and judgments, then can this be held with kindness? Can this be held with patience? A sense of, oh yeah, this is what happens. It's okay. It's part of being human. Holding it with love. Now, if you'd like to, opening to mindfulness of the body, so expanding the sense of attentional spotlight from the anchor place to the whole body. So it's opening out and becoming a wider, perhaps a more receptive attention. And just to see what comes. Patiently waiting for whatever is coming. Maybe there's not much. In which case we can wait, cultivate the quality of waiting. At any time, you can come back to anchor if that's needed or wanted. Expressing a willingness to stay moment by moment. And you only have to make the choice in this moment. So X number of minutes away is just that. It's just an idea. Only now. And now. And now. If you are finding there's difficult sensations in your body, perhaps there's some pain here, or perhaps there's some low mood here, or anxiety here, then this might be an opportunity to practice patience with it. Not in the sense of trying to be patient or putting up with it or all of that stuff, but rather an invitation to acknowledge, say, oh yeah, this is painful. Like you might if a friend were in distress, were describing a pain or a difficulty. Just saying yes to it. Yeah, you're here. And let me feel with you. It's getting to know the experience. For some of us, the experience may be very pleasant right now. And it may seem easy to be patient with it. That's okay. Work with whatever's coming up for each of us. Riding the waves of experience. And if impatience arises, can we be patient with impatience, to recognize it as a wanting, or indeed having a look at it and seeing what exactly it is for you. Is it a feeling tone? Is it a thought? Is it an impulse, or some combination of all of those? Holding impatience with love. And if you will now, opening up from mindfulness of body to a wider open presence, opening up to the whole of your being, all of the senses, opening up to hearing, opening up to feeling tone, smelling, tasting. Thoughts can arise and pass away without needing to attach to them. Is it possible just now to practice the patience that comes simply from being aware of what's happening, rather than to be identified with what's happening? And not needing to evaluate, as in compare this experience with some other experience or with an idealized version of it, but rather to inquire into the nature of what's here with no reference point to some other time or place. In no way needing to interfere with what's happening for now. Just the kindly watching and allowing it to be experienced in body and mind. Your experience is neither right nor wrong, in that by meeting it with awareness, we're meeting it beyond the reference points that create comparisons that, although helpful and important in everyday life, at times can also lead us into impatience. Seeing things as they are with love. It's okay to rest here. To be here. be in non-doing.